how long is the Great Tribulation? And so we'll start in Matthew 24, verse 15. Matthew 24, verse 15. Matthew 24, 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Now, if you notice what that passage is saying, when the abomination of desolation is set up, that is the point in time at which believers in Jerusalem are to flee into the mountains. It doesn't say to do that before that time. Verse 17, let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Now notice verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. The language there is very specific. It says, for then shall be great tribulation. So that's when the great tribulation commences. What is the event that signifies the start of the great tribulation? Well, it's verse 15 where the abomination of desolation is set up. Now that tells you that the great tribulation does not start before then. It starts with the abomination of desolation. That is set up in the middle of the 70th week. So how long does the Great Tribulation last then? 3.5 years, right? Because it's set up, the Great Tribulation begins when the abomination of desolation is set up. The abomination of desolation is set up in the midst of the 70th week. So the Great Tribulation, therefore, must last 3.5 years. Now get with me Daniel 9, verse 24. Daniel 9:24. Daniel 9, verse 24. 70 weeks. Now, the weeks that we're going to read about in Daniel 9 are not weeks of 7 days. Now, when we use the word week, we almost always use it to mean 7 days. That's how we use it. But in Daniel 9, this week is 7 years. So 70 weeks is 490 years, 70 times 7. Daniel 9:24, 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. So verse 24 referred to 70 weeks. Verse 25 talks about the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem. So when that commandment is given to restore and build Jerusalem unto Messiah the Prince, so that period of time is 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So let's do the math quickly. So what is 60? Well, a score is 20. So 60 is 60. So 7 and 62 equals what? 69, right? 7 plus 60 plus 2 is 69. So Daniel 9:24 talks about 70 weeks. Daniel 9:25 accounts for 69 of those weeks. It begins with the commandment to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem, and it goes unto Messiah the Prince. Now notice Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, So that's obviously after the 69 weeks have elapsed, the Messiah is going to be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Verse 27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. Well, that's the 70th week. That's the one that hasn't been accounted for yet. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. So if we pay attention to what Daniel 9:27 is saying, that's exactly what Matthew 24:15 was referring to when it referred to the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. It's clear in Daniel 9:27 that this covenant is confirmed for 1 week, and it is in the midst of the week that the abomination of the desolation occurs. So therefore, if the week is 7 years and the abomination of desolation is in the midst of it, the midpoint would be 3.5, right? 7 divided to 2 is 3.5. Now, notice one further thing before we move on. What people often think of the 70 weeks is they think, well, when the 69th week ends, then the next day, the 70th week starts. The same way that, when 2024 ends, what happens the next day? 2025 starts, right? December 31st, 2024. It's followed immediately by January 1st, 2025. We all get that. But if you pay attention to what this is saying here, Daniel 9:27, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. So it's not saying here that the 70th week starts immediately after the 69th week. There are 69 weeks that occur, and then what happens is the prince of the covenant, the beast, what people often commonly call the Antichrist, he confirms the covenant for 1 week, meaning he enters an agreement that lasts 1 week or 7 years. So there is inherently a gap between the 69th week and the 70th week, and Daniel 9 tells you that. Another proof of that is this. After 62 weeks, so look at this in verse 26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. So has that already happened? Has Messiah already been cut off? The answer is yes. Well, did the 70th week already begin? It hasn't, right? Because it's a yet future event where the Prince of the Covenant has to confirm the 70th week, that covenant with Israel. Okay, so what have we seen so far? The Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. Daniel's 70th week is 7 years. So it's 7 years in the future. The Great Tribulation is the latter part of that 70th week. Now, I want you to see something else. Go with me to Matthew 24, verse 4. Now, since the Great Tribulation is the latter half of the 70th week, is there tribulation that takes place before the Great Tribulation? The answer to that is yes. So look with me at Matthew 24, verse 4. And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So are there some precursor problems before the end comes? And the answer is very clearly yes. Verse 7, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, we looked earlier at Matthew 24, 15 to 21. That was when the abomination of desolation is set up. But are there some sorrows that begin even before that happens? Yeah, because we're here in the earlier part of Matthew 24, and even before the abomination of desolation, there's nation rising against nation, there's famines, there's pestilence, there's earthquakes, there's the beginning of sorrows that take place before the great tribulation begins. Look with me then at Daniel 11, verse 21. Daniel 11, verse 21. Daniel 11:21, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. So verse 21 talks about this vile person. Verse 22 talks about the prince of the covenant. What I'm going to suggest to you is those are referring to the same person. There's a vile person that Daniel 11 prophesies that is going to be the prince of the covenant. In other words, that's the same individual that in Daniel 9 makes the covenant with Israel for 1 week. Now, we read there in Daniel 11, verses 21 and 22. But let's go back up to Daniel 1 for a minute, because what I want to show you is that there are prophetic events prior to the Prince of the Covenant signing the covenant. In other words, the Prince of the Covenant will sign the covenant for 1 week. But what I want you to notice is there are some prophesied events that take place before that happens. So we're going to start in Daniel 11, verse 1. And as we read through this chapter, I want you to think about the question, is that verse something that has already taken place in history, or is it something that will be fulfilled in the future? So Daniel 11, verse 1. Also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And now will I show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the fourth shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. So verse 2 talks about some kings that are going to come to power in Persia. The fourth will be richer than them all, and then he's going to stir up against the realm of Grecia. Is that something that's future, or has that already happened? And the answer is that has already happened. Now, notice verse 3. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. So I'll tell you what I believe you can decide for yourself. When Daniel's writing this with regard to Daniel 11, and it's during the reign of Persia, if you will, he says there's going to be three kings that stand up. The fourth will be richer than all of them, and then the Persian Empire is going to have war with Grecia, and then there's this mighty king that rules with great dominion, but his kingdom shall be broken and divided toward the 4 winds of heaven and not to his posterity. Who is verses 3 and 4 referring to? It's Alexander the Great. What happens with Alexander the Great? He wars against Persia. He has a vast reign, but does his posterity inherit his throne? And the answer is no. What ends up happening to the Grecian Empire after his death? It's divided into 4 subparts. So Daniel 11, verses 2, 3, 4, that's a reference to Alexander the Great. Those verses are past history, I believe. You can decide for yourself whether or not you think that's true. Now notice verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Now let me just make this point. When you're at the very beginning of Daniel 11, it's very clear that some of those verses are past history, like, for example, the kings of Persia. When you get to the end of Daniel 11, it's very clear that some of that is future prophecy. So the question is, as you read through Daniel 11, where do you get to that dividing line between things that have already been fulfilled and things that are yet to be fulfilled? And I'm just going to tell you my opinion. I think this is the dividing line right here. That, in other words, Daniel 11, verse 5, this is the point where I think it starts to refer to future events, meaning future after the dispensation of grace occurs. So let's keep reading. And I'm just going to do Daniel 11, verse 5 again, and then keep going. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. I don't think that's a reference to one of the subparts of Alexander the Great's empire after his death. I think that's the king of the south in the future. Verse 6, and in the end of years, that sure seems like future. They shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Verse 7, but out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail, and shall also carry captives into Egypt their gods, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom, and shall return into his own land. But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall be cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. For the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And at those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount, and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. But he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. He shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither before him. After this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall, and not be found. Then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom, but within few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Now notice verse 21 and 22. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably, and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overflown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. So let me put this all together. When you start reading in verse 5, and you go down to verse 22 as we did, verse 5 starts with the king of the south, and then it talks about the king of the north, and there's all these interplay between them. Well, I don't think that when it describes the king of the north and the king of the south and this interplay between them, I don't think you can divide those somewhere in the middle and say, part of those happened 2,000 years ago, part of those will be 2,000 years in the future. I don't think that makes sense given that. And I don't think we get to the beast, the man of sin, the prince of the covenant, until you get to verse 21 and verse 22, where you have this vile person that's the prince of the covenant. Now, what that tells you is this. People sometimes think, well, the rapture happens, and then the next day is the start of the 70th week. I don't believe that. Because the prince of the covenant, when he gets Israel to sign the covenant, there have to be preceding events that makes Israel want to sign the covenant. You know from 2 Thessalonians 2 that the man of sin, the son of perdition, isn't even revealed during the dispensation of grace, because we live during a time where the dispensation of grace holds back the fulfillment of the prophetic program. So what that all means is this, you can decide for yourself. I don't believe the rapture happens on Tuesday and the 70th week starts on Wednesday. I don't believe that. When the rapture happens, the prophetic timetable picks back up exactly where it left off. It was interrupted. It's like a timeout in a football game. When the clock starts running again, it starts from exactly where it was before the timeout. And what that means is all the events of Daniel 11 that are precursors to the 70th week have to be fulfilled before the man of sin comes to power and signs the covenant for 1 week with Israel. So back to our original question, how long is the Great Tribulation? The Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. That's the latter part of the 70th week, which is 7 years. So the 70th week is 7 years. The Great Tribulation is 3.5 years. But is there tribulation even before the 70th week? And the answer is yes, because there are other troubles that are prophesied, for example, in Matthew 24 and Daniel 11.